Record. All right, thank you everyone for joining us for Living an Empowered Life Through Self-Direction webinar with TMG Wisconsin. I'm very excited to say we have Dan Crone here, who is the Manager of Community Partnerships at TMG. For the last 13 years, his work has been focused on partnering with people to build full lives in their communities through community-based supports, resources, and connections to one another. Dan has worked on the community partnership team at TMG since 2017, using his talents to support people, families, schools, and service providers involved in Wisconsin's self-directed high-risk program. He lives in Waukesha County with his wife and 2 young sons. Also probably joining us, assuming her internet kicks in, will be Miss Christine Schulz. She is the community partnership specialist with TMG. She has been working with TMG for a year and focuses on building relationships within the southeastern part of Wisconsin. Prior to TMG, Christine spent 9 years as a program manager for Goodwill Industries of southeastern Wisconsin, where she led Goodwill supportive employment efforts. She also spent time as a program manager for Best Buddies of Wisconsin, where she focused on developing strategic partnerships with schools and community organizations. Christine lives in Wauwatosa, Milwaukee County, with her husband, 2 dogs, and 1 cat. All right, so I'm going to throw it over to you, Dan, and feel free to share your screen if you want.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that nice introduction, Katie. It's a pleasure to spend the Wednesday evening with you all. Hope you all are doing well and staying warm. And I was telling Katie, it's been pretty windy today by my house, so if my internet kind of cuts in and out, just don't feel free to speak up and tell me to repeat myself. And Christine, who is supposed to be joining me, is having internet issues herself. So hopefully she will be able to jump on here in a few minutes. Christine.
I think Christine joined, Dan.
Okay.
Someone named Christine just joined.
Okay.
So.
Okay. She's probably getting settled, so we'll give her a moment here. But yeah, Christine's been with TMG for a little over a year now, but you may know her. She worked at Goodwill for a number of years. She worked for the Best Buddies organization as well. And so some of you may know her from some of her previous roles. But yeah, thank you so much. Like Katie said, my name is Dan Crone, and I've been with TMG for coming up on 7 years. And I'm the manager of our community partnership team. And the primary role of our team is to do this very thing that we're doing today, talking to families, talking to individuals, trying to help people navigate through this, what can be a very confusing world of adult long-term care. If you have younger kids, you certainly might feel that this is a very overwhelming time. There's a lot of moving pieces that are involved in this. But hopefully today we're able to answer some questions you may have around long-term care in general, or the IRIS program that we work in. So yeah, I don't know, Christine, I think she's still trying to join, so hopefully she'll join in a minute.
Hey everybody.
You're
hi.
here.
Can you hear me okay? I'm using my phone. I'm so sorry. I don't have any internet connection, so I'm just using the mobile phone.
Yes, we can hear you, Christine.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I don't know. Our internet's not working this evening again. So my apologies for joining via phone.
No worries.
It's this virtual world that we live in, right? We're so dependent on all the technology working the way it's supposed to. But I'll kick things off, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna share my screen, and then I'm gonna bring it down. I really want this to be an interactive session. So like Katie said, please don't hesitate to use the chat, ask questions as we go along, and we'll certainly pause anytime anyone has questions. But yeah, our goal today is just to share a bit about our organization, TMG, and how we partner with people enrolled in the IRIS program. Really just talk about what is the IRIS program and what does it mean to be in a self-directed program. So give me a moment. It always takes me a moment to figure out how to share. Okay. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm not able to see anybody, so Katie, if you could just let me know if somebody pops a question into the chat, that would be great.
Absolutely.
So yeah, like I said, Christina and I work for TMG. So TMG is one of Wisconsin's IRIS consulting agencies. We've been around since IRIS started, even long before IRIS started. But we've been partnering with people in the IRIS program since 2008. The IRIS program just had its 16-year anniversary this year. And yeah, we've been doing this since IRIS started. We partner with people in all 72 counties across the state. IRIS is now available in every county, which is wonderful. And our organization, we have IRIS consultants and team members that work in every county across the state. And yeah, we've been doing this since IRIS started. We are the largest agency, and we have a lot of experience in this program. But essentially, what we do is we support people creating meaningful lives for themselves, right? And that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, but that's the beauty of the program, is that we understand that everybody's different. Everybody has a different meaning of what creating a full life for themselves looks like. So all IRIS plans are individualized to be individual, and at the end of the day, somebody's plan in IRIS is really built around those individuals' short-term and long-term life goals. And we can dive into that a little bit as we go along here. But just wanting to start from the beginning. You know, I don't know if anyone wants to put into, I guess it's sort of a trivia question, but does anyone know what IRIS stands for? Give everyone a moment.
Nothing.
Tough one. Okay. So IRIS stands for Include, Respect, I Self-Direct. So IRIS was created, like I said, back 16 years ago in 2008 as a new long-term care option in the state of Wisconsin. It was launched as an alternative to what existed at the time, which some of you may be familiar with or have heard, which is the other long-term care model, which is called family care. You may have family, friends, people you know that are enrolled in those programs. And so the two main programs of long-term care in Wisconsin for adults are family care and IRIS now. So to qualify for adult long-term care, the first and foremost thing is an individual has to be 18 years old. So you may have children or know people that are under 18 that might be part of the children's long-term care waiver program or another program similar to that in Wisconsin. But when a child hits 18, they technically move into the adult long-term care world. Funny to think of a 18-year-old as being an adult. I think that's debatable, but technically they transfer over to the adult long-term care world, and that's when the doors open to new options for them. So we always say, you know, start thinking ahead, start planning as early as possible when your kids are as young as 13, 14, 15. You want to start thinking ahead, because it is a bit, like I said earlier, it's a bit overwhelming. There's a lot of things to think about, a lot of options out there. Some are, you know, some differences between the children's programs and the adult programs. So definitely, I would say start as early as possible, do your homework, talk to people, reach out to organizations like Journey 21 and other community organizations. You know, there's a wealth of people with information out there, but most importantly, which we'll talk about more later, is you know, always know that every county has an Aging and Disability Resource Center, ADRC for short. If you're not familiar with them, they are sort of the gatekeepers for all the programs. They're the place to go to for information on all the long-term care programs in Wisconsin. So certainly don't hesitate to reach out to them. But technically a person can start the enrollment process when they turn 17 and a half. You can start to get the ball rolling around adult long-term care. IRIS is unique in that it is considered the self-directed long-term care option. And that is a term that you may have heard before, but you're like, well, what exactly does that mean? But what essentially it means is that the individual and the family have full control over the funding that they receive. IRIS is fully self-directed. There's elements of family care that you can self-direct certain services, but it's different than it would be in IRIS. So IRIS is fully self-directed, meaning that at the end of the day, you have the final say on the services you want, the frequency of those services that you want, and who you want to provide those services. Everything has to fit within an IRIS budget. Budgets are individualized for the individual, but that budget is your IRIS budget. And somebody from our organization or another one of the IRIS consulting agencies will work with you to make sure that you're managing your budget, answer any questions you may have, help you kind of navigate through the processes of getting yourself set up with the services that you need. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's your budget, and you're deciding how you want to use that funding, which is great. It's it's that old with power comes responsibility, right? It's like there's an element of responsibility, but you have that freedom to know that you're making yourself better than anyone else, and you have that ability to make those decisions what you feel is best for you.
I know we actually happen to get a frequent question to us staff about how those budgets are determined, because everyone, like you said, they're individualized. So we get asked how they determine what a budget is, and of course we have no idea. So I was wondering if you just touch upon how the state or whoever comes upon a number.
Good question. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a message popping up on my computer here about an update. Sorry about that. That's a very good question. Yeah, we get that question a lot too, and it is confusing. It's a confusing piece. And I know Christine's going to hopefully talk about this in a bit, but so the process really starts at the ADRC. So if you are considering seeing if you're eligible or enrolling in adult long-term care, step one would be to reach out to your ADRC. I mean, I'm guessing that many of you are probably in Waukesha or Milwaukee counties. There's an ADRC in both those counties, and they're very friendly people at both. But what you'd want to do is you want to schedule an appointment, and through that process, they will determine your eligibility for all the programs that you qualify for, including IRIS. Let's say you do qualify for IRIS. You would go through a process called options counseling, determine which program, which agency you want to work with. But then at that point, you'd also go through a screening process. So the ADRC at the time will often come out to your home, do a functional screen to determine, what are the things that the individual can do on their own, what are the things that an individual might need some additional support with. And they'll have a conversation, it's all, the family can be involved, and you're kind of talk through that process. And all that is factored in when the ADRC determines an individual's budget. So the IRIS, like our agency and other agencies in IRIS, we don't have any part in determining a person's budget. So essentially it's all done at the ADRC. So you get an initial budget through the program based on needs and some other factors. And another misconception is that budget is set in stone, and that's your budget and it's never going to change. But we recognize that people's needs change, right? Our abilities change, what we need changes. So with that, we always are re-examining individuals' budgets. The budgets are really based on the individual's needs. So there is no set in stone budget. So let's say, you know, for an example, you're using transportation to and from Journey 21 2 days a week, but now you decided that you want to up that because there's some new wonderful programming rolling out and you want to go 4 days a week. But we can adjust your budget. You know, if you have room in your budget, we can certainly add those additional services to you. But let's say your budget, as you've maxed out your budget, you don't have any additional funding in your budget, but you want to take some additional programming, or you have some additional transportation needs, or you have some other needs around the house. There is something called a budget amendment where we can work with you to make sure you get the additional funding you need for additional services. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question in that, you know, initially it's at the ADRC, but then we work with you to make sure you have the funding available.
So can a family request updated functional screens sooner than their annual review if there's a change in physical abilities?
Absolutely. They can request that at any time. I mean, obviously needs change at any moment, right? So yeah, you would talk to your IRIS consultants, which everybody has a one-on-one person that they work with. So you would start by talking to that individual, and we have a team of people at TMG that would help through that process. And we kind of lay out how circumstances have changed, what the additional funding is going to be needed for. And then we can take that to Department of Health Services, DHS, and put that request in. And we're really good about getting people the funding they need. So
great.
There's also a thing in IRIS that people don't always know about called a one-time expense. These are also allowable in IRIS. Let's say I'm going to use an example of an individual had a vehicle, but the vehicle broke down, and they had to get a new vehicle, and they needed a new vehicle modification, right? You need some new assistive technology, you need a new ramp, you need some new hand controls, or whatever you may need in your vehicle. That can be pretty costly, right? Thousands of dollars that you were not expecting, and it's not in your current IRIS budget. You know, we can work with that individual to get additional funding for a one-time expense, and it's usually for some of those larger, more expensive items, like a big home modification, or a big vehicle modification, or something like that. So yeah, those are a couple things that people don't always know about when you think about IRIS. I wanted just to share a couple other things. So the whole intent, I guess I would just want to go back a second and say kind of the whole philosophy behind the program is we want supporting people living a full life in their community. So the great thing about the program is, you know, they factor in all those different aspects of our life that we all have, and they're all important. So it's not just about having the care needs, which are certainly incredibly important for individuals' health and safety reasons, but they certainly look at all those other aspects. So how do we help this individual become, you know, create a meaningful life and create meaningful roles on their community? How do we help them get connected to other people? So we can go through the IRIS handbook a bit in a few minutes, but yeah, it's really intended to, okay, looking at what does this individual do for the social aspects of their life? What do they do? Are they looking to have a job and find employment? You know, how do we support people around, you know, achieving their employment goals? Does the individual eventually want to move out of their parents' home, for example, and live in an apartment, or live in a home, or live in a condo of their own? Well, then let's help them. Let's, you know, do what we can to support you with your IRIS plan around making that happen too. And so when an individual starts off in IRIS, you know, they get matched up with a consultant one-on-one, and they have choice over the person that they partner with. I know that's another key important piece, is that you want to find a consultant that you or your child is compatible with. So you have full control over the person that you choose as your consultant. And if you go on our website, we have bios for all of our consultants. So I always recommend people like go on there. You can search by area, read bios, and yeah, we share some good information about our consultants. But upon those first visits with your consultant, that's what they'll talk about. They'll talk about like, okay, first and foremost, what are those health and safety needs, right? What do we need to make sure that you're safe in your current environment? How do we put the right supports in place, whether those are personal care supports, you need help getting dressed, you need help showering, you need help with toileting and the other personal care needs. Okay, what are some of the supportive care needs an individual may need? And that could include help around the house, or cooking and cleaning, home delivered meals. Certainly that's first and foremost. We want to make sure the individual is safe in their environment. But then, what are some of those other short-term and long-term goals? Like we said, as this individual want to get out in their community and get connected with some programming at a local organization like Journey 21 in their community. Are there other social opportunities out there that they want to get involved in? Are there health and wellness other opportunities? You can, you want to go and use your IRIS funding to go to the local YMCA, 3 days a week. Okay, well, let's get that on your IRIS plan. So it really looks at all those different aspects. If you're interested in employment, okay, where are you at? Like, what are you interested in? Where are you at? Do you need help with identifying a job coach or resume building? Do you need do you want to get started in a job program like Project Search, which is on the job like internship type of program? All those different things, and if somebody wants to eventually live, you're thinking down the road, I want them to live on their own. Well, we'll start putting a plan together to how do we support someone living independently.
So Dan, I know IRIS consultants, it's all about self-directed supports, but what if there's a service I think my child needs and I don't know the providers available? So does your IRIS consultant help say, hey, here's the 5 organizations to look into who provide VOC services?
Good. Another great question. Yes. So one of the major differences between family care and IRIS is that in family care, they have a contracted network of providers that you can choose from. And they'll give you a list of 3 or 4 or 5 that you can pick from in your community. In IRIS, we don't contract with any agency. So it would be no different than you or I going online and finding, let's say, you're looking for, art therapy or, organization. It would be no different than you or I going on the internet and Googling art therapy in the community, or I don't know if people use the yellow pages anymore, but like, oh yeah, it would be no different than any one of us like trying to, finding a service, right? And that's kind of the benefit of the program is individuals can work with whomever they're comfortable with. So that could be agencies of their choice, and it could be individuals of their choice. So they get to choose. Which is great. And if you have an organization in your community you want to work with, it's just a matter of getting them set up as an IRIS vendor, which the majority of larger organizations are already, which is great. And then so you can really get something on your plan. And yes, your consultant will certainly help you know what's in your neighborhood and what's in your community. The benefit of working with our consultants, they all live in the same communities as the people that they partner with. So the idea being they're very familiar with the resources surrounding them. So yes, you will certainly support, and we can share what we know about them. And but at the end of the day, they make that final choice.
Right.
The other thing is there is something in IRIS called a participant hired worker, meaning that an individual can hire participants for services and supports they need, and they can hire anyone. So that means they can hire you, they can hire a parent, they can hire a sibling, they can hire a neighbor, someone close to them, someone that they're already familiar with, and that individual can become essentially an employee of the individual in Iris and get paid for the services that they're providing. So if for many of us, especially if it's a family member, we would be doing it anyway. We'd be doing it for free. We're doing it already, but it is a benefit of Iris is that you can get paid for services you provide.
Right.
And that is unique to Iris as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Well, since we were talking, I did want to quickly try to play if it works, play a quick video. I thought this might help. This video is on our homepage of our website, but it really does a good job of kind of encapsulating how an Iris consultant would partner with a person. Okay. So I'll do my best to figure out how to do this. So if you can, hopefully you can see this and hear it.
We can.
Okay. Give it a second here.
We're good.
It's all there inside your head. The goals, the ideas, the things that will make you feel free, in control, accomplished. Maybe it's a job doing something that inspires you, making your home safer or easier to navigate, getting more involved in your community, or just finding the best way to move from point A to point B. Whatever's on your list, it's a combination of needs and ambitions that's unique. It belongs exclusively to you. No one else on the planet shares them until you share them with TMG. And when you do, a little magic starts to happen. A partnership forms. Together, you make roadblocks and obstacles start to disappear, clearing the path ahead between you and those goals. TMG takes the time to truly understand what's in your head, put it on paper, help you create a plan that puts your ideas into motion. See, there are resources all around your community and throughout Wisconsin. People, services, agencies, businesses, advocates. And there is a perfect mix of those resources to help you achieve your goals. Identifying that perfect mix is the hallmark of TMG, because good information leads to good decisions. Collaborating with you will do some homework, get creative, build a plan, your plan. And TMG will make your plan ours. It's a relationship that happens with you, not to you. We'll stay there alongside you as those resources go to work on behalf of your goals, and we'll celebrate together as you achieve them. Because it's not just you who benefits. The entire community is made better when you're an active part of it. So why not get that community involved from the get-go? It starts with a partnership. It becomes a collaboration. And it results in beautiful, important things. TMG. Let's clear the path ahead.
Wonderful video.
Right. Thank you for letting me show that.
It's so easy to place people in boxes.
Hold on.
Drawing lines, creating signs.
Still going. Okay. There we go. Our organization adopted the tagline, clear the path ahead. That's the way that we really look at the role of what we do is, we try to remove those obstacles that are in the way of, finding services or maintaining services or finding workers. But at the end of the day, we might be, clearing out the tall grass to clear a straight path, but at the end of the day, it's the individual and the family they're on their own journey. And yeah, it's like you heard in the video, it really is a partnership. The individual's in the driver's seat. And we're in the passenger seat holding the map saying you can go all these different places and do all these things, but at the end of the day, it's your choice to tell us where you want to go. A couple other things. I know Christine is still having some technical issues. But there is another video I was hoping to quickly show you guys. It's short and it's on the Department of Health Services website on their IRIS page. And it's a really nice video about a young person who was able to use their IRIS funding to enroll in this employment internship that I mentioned earlier called Project Search, and how successful she was at finding employment. And so I will, if you guys are okay with me playing one more video, just a couple minutes. Yeah. I like to show people this because, it's one of those stories where the family wasn't sure how independent their daughter was going to be. And, she was able to use her IRIS funding to get enrolled in this job internship program, which if you're not familiar with Project Search, it's a on-the-job internship for individuals, and there's different sites all around Wisconsin. It's a really wonderful program where they really get like hands-on experience at some of these large companies. Like in the video, it's the Kalahari and the Dells, and like Children's Hospital and Milwaukee County Zoo is a site, and the Mitchell International Airport is a site. So it's a really great program, and these kids are really getting some great work experience. But I wanted to show you this. It's 2 minutes. And it's a great example of how someone was able to use their IRIS funding. So let's show that.
Great.
Truly does make us better at everything we do.
Well, I think there might be a buffering issue.
My name is Melissa Bramacher. I'm 25 years old. I mostly do the stuff here, clean the relaxation room, fill the coffee.
When she was developing inside me and the brain was developing, some of the cells in her brain kind of wandered into the center where the fluid is, and then they attach themselves to other areas that they don't normally belong. She has to work a little harder for some things that we kind of take for granted. My husband and I, after she was diagnosed, we just knew that she would be with us the rest of our lives. We just had built that into our future. We felt that we would have to take care of her and she would always be at home, and we would grow old together. This job's a lifesaver. It is everything that I need help with to help her. Transportation is the biggest struggle, right? So we're in Sauk City. She works in the Dells, in Wisconsin Dells, and then IRIS helps fund that transportation.
I think that each one of us has learned from her. We have grown. We have become more caring. We have become more aware. She has brought a sense of unity.
I love my coworkers. I love my boss. I just love everybody here.
The transformation has been amazing. Confidence level, appearance, everything. My husband and we're to the point where, I don't think she's going to be with us forever. I think she will be out there on her own. I get all emotional about it because it's her success is my every happiness. Every bit.
Wonderful.
The
Jeez,
Northern
I'm
California
not-
police officer says a routine patrol led to a life-changing event when a home.
Sorry about that. It just keeps playing the videos. Yeah, I like that video a lot because it's the perfect example of how somebody was able to do something that maybe they never thought they'd be able to do, and this young lady took an interest in wanting to work and was enrolled in the program, and we were able to support her using her IRIS funding to get set up with that through that internship, which it was amazing to see how she thrived in so many different other aspects of her life too. Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about all this self-direction piece and being able to control your funding. I will say that Wisconsin has one of the most robust adult long-term care models in the country, which is really wonderful. I in this slide that I'm going to share with Katie that she can share out with you, there is a link to the IRIS handbook, which lists all of the different type of services that you can use your IRIS funding for. It's a long list, and so I won't go through them all, but it's pretty impressive that they, like I said earlier, they take into all the different aspects of an individual's life, knowing that it's really about creating a full, meaningful life in a variety of different ways, and it's not just about those services that somebody needs. So this handbook, which we'll send you the link to, does a really good job of talking about the relationship between the individual and the IRIS consultant as well. And again, going back to that, the individual's in the driver's seat, and then kind of step by step how the plan is created, how we work with individuals around their within their budget, and what happens when those services and needs change. So if you see the screen here, another key aspect of the program is there are IRIS fiscal employer agents. So TMG, we are one of the IRIS consultant agencies. So the way I describe it is, we're on the people side of things. We work with the people enrolled in the program. There are four other agencies that are on the financial end of the IRIS program that handle the billing and payment for individuals. So so you may come across this fiscal employer agent, or FEA for short. So when you choose IRIS, if you choose IRIS, you would choose to work with an IRIS consulting agency, and you would choose to work with a fiscal employer agency. So, and then the two of us work hand in hand to make sure that we work with the individual to get it on the plan, and then get it authorized on somebody's plan, and then we work with the fiscal agent to make sure that the financial end gets taken care of, and the individuals and the organizations get paid for the services that they're providing. But I did just want to show you. So yeah, I'm going to send this to you guys. It does a really good job of breaking down the ins and outs of the program and the plans. Like we talked about earlier, when additional money is needed for your plan, getting your plan started. But I wanted to, so here's some examples of services that individuals can use their IRIS funding for. And some of the most common ones on here are, like those day services, community-based programming designed to meet the people's needs, right? Adaptive technology, and that's with the ever-changing technology in the world that we live in. More and more technology is becoming allowable under IRIS, which is really wonderful. So, we work with individuals that they want their child to live in an apartment on their own, but they need some security monitoring systems. So they want to be able to see their child. So they set up those security systems and those monitoring systems in their home, and they're pretty amazing now what they're able to do. But some other common ones are, like home delivered meals. That is a big service, which is allowable, and home modifications such as ramps, vehicle modifications, bathroom modifications, personal care needs. Obviously, that is a big one, and I do want to mention that within the IRIS program, there is what's called a self-directed personal care program within IRIS. So individuals, if they choose the self-directed personal care option, they get a separate budget for their personal care needs through the IRIS program. So you can go kind of one of two ways. You can enroll in this separate self-directed personal care program, and you have a separate budget, and you'll have a nurse from our agency that you work with. Or you can not choose a self-directed personal program and hire outside agencies that for the personal care needs. People have the choice at whatever program they choose. As I mentioned earlier, supportive care needs are very common in the program, such as assistance with cleaning. Personal emergency response systems are allowable in the program. Like we said, that supportive employment, or other type of on-site job support for individuals, pre-vocational services, and one of the most important, transportation, which certainly is very important for people to get out and about in the community and get connected in their community, so they can use the transportation services available in the community, including public transportation too.
Dan, are there services that people frequently ask to be covered, but they're not? I know rent is not, and food, are there things that
Yeah, good question. I think the big ones are the living settings for IRIS. Yeah, IRIS. So, another major difference between us and the family care program, IRIS does not cover an individual's room and board, but if an individual does live out on their own, or lives at home with their family, they can cover all of those other aspects of their life that can help them maintain their independence. Trying to think. I'll have to think about that.
That's okay.
There's
Also, go ahead.
Yeah, so an individual, there's certain requirements around living settings that a person can live in. So they have to be in a community living setting, right? So they need to live, in a fully inclusive community setting. So no different than in an apartment building or condo that any one of us in a neighborhood that any one of us would live in. You can't live in a community-based residential facility and be allowed in IRIS. You can't live in a group home, but you could live in an adult family home up to 4 beds. So either a 1 to 2 bedroom or 3 to 4 bedroom adult family home is allowable. So yeah, there's certain, and I would definitely recommend going online, and it's all in this handbook too that I'm going to be sending you. But yeah, there are certain living settings that are slightly different. But the nice thing is that there's certain things, like I mentioned, art therapy or therapeutic horseback riding, or some of these things that aren't allowable in other programs that are allowable in IRIS, which are really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe I'll pause there and see if there might be any other questions.
Feel free to unmute yourself and turn your camera on, folks, if you have a question. We don't have that many of us, so that's not a problem. I'm always the queen of questions.
No, these are great questions. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I want to make sure I try to make sure I answer everybody's questions and don't miss anything.
And this is because I don't even know. So does IRIS do a cost share? So oftentimes on the family care side, depending on how much income you have. So some people, right, have their social security, maybe from a parent's retirement, like social security. So they're receiving more than maybe what someone who has nothing to base their social security off of, so they get less, right? So I know when I worked in family care, sometimes due to people's income, they also had a cost share to help cover some costs within the program. Now, does Iris do things like that as well?
It's that is a good question. It's not very common.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say it's not very common. I do know there might be some circumstances where there is a cost share involved, but it's we don't see that very often.
Okay.
Yeah. But you did touch on a good thing about the financial eligibility piece, which I didn't touch on in the beginning, is that I think it's important to mention that IRIS, just like family care, are Medicaid waiver programs. So there's the functional aspects, and then there's the financial eligibility requirements. So you need to be both functionally and financially eligible for adult long-term care. And again, we don't determine that. That's all done when you meet with the ADRC. But essentially, yeah, you have to be at a what they call a nursing home level of care, and they determine that. But then you need to be financially eligible, meaning you need to be eligible for Medicaid, and you need to stay within that too. So there are, and I'm sure some of you know of, like the programs out there. There's the organizations like Navigators that work with special needs trusts, and other organizations like WISPAC that help people if they are wondering if they financially qualify or there's some additional funding that the family has. I would certainly recommend reaching out to. There's organizations out in the community that can probably know more about it than I do. But yeah, that is important. So yeah, thank you, Katie.
Wonderful. So we have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Does swimming lessons count as an option if it helps like someone's physical mobility?
Good question. And yes, I say this in that everybody's plan is looked at individually. So, but yes, let's just say yes, if it is a health and wellness aspect of somebody's lives where it helps them maintain their mobility, yes, that is absolutely something that could go on somebody's plan. I know there's quite a few individuals that go to the local community center or YMCA and do different programming, including swim program. So again, I say that being that there's certainly a process to talk through that with your IRIS consultant, but yes, it has been on people's plan. And yeah, it's one of the nice things about the program, for sure.
So when you talk about the IRIS plan, you're basically saying, is this something that just kind of outlines people's life and areas of need, and then the services have to like there's goals related to those needs, and then your service has to relate to that goal or area of need?
Yeah, good question. It all has to trail back to that individual's goal, and which is why everybody's plan is different than somebody else's. So, but yes, if swimming lessons, for example, ties back to an individual's goal of living independently, and they need to be able to maintain their mobility and to be able to do that, then absolutely it can go on somebody's plan. But yes, so it is a long process of working with your consultant when you're newly enrolled, and like we talked about earlier, it's always changing. So one of the things we really hope, and one of the important things of having a good relationship with your consultant, is that you have that open, honest communication about your needs and where you're at, and when things are changing, you're working with your IRIS consultant to make sure the plan reflects those changes. So when our consultants meet with you, it'll be over a series of meetings, in-person meetings, phone meetings, virtual meetings. We'll talk about those short-term goals. We'll talk about the things the individual kind of services they have now, if they're receiving services, but are there other services, or are there things they need to be to maintain their independence or be safer in their home. What are those type of things? But then, yeah, what are those short-term goals? Like short-term, I want to make sure that I have someone coming in and supporting by cooking and cleaning and cutting the grass and shoveling snow. And, I have those short-term needs met. I have people that can tend to my personal care needs. Like those are the immediate things. But then my longer term goal is, I want to live out on my own. I want to move out of my parents' house, or I want to move in with my friends and have a place of my own. And there's a lot of steps in between that we work with people to make sure that, they get there. So we're always kind of circling back on the individual's goals.
Right.
And
That's great. Question about the budget amendments, just because I know there's a couple families on this call that happen to have kids in our services, and anyone who knows about our academies, those are service above and beyond because they're temporary. They're not a forever service like traditional day program. It's not like you're going to attend there forever potentially, or maybe an employment setting. They're several years, so the cost is just a little bit different. When should families be talking to their IRIS consultant about getting that budget amendment? Because I know it's a process. I know it has to go through DHS, and I guess we get families who ask us about, backdating or how fast can that happen, and it's just really helpful to know how that all works.
good question. You're right in that it is a process. So I would say start the process as soon as you want to get it. You're thinking about getting enrolled in this process. Reach out to your IRIS consultant and let them know.
Okay.
They'll certainly want to meet with you and get a good understanding of the program itself, what it all entails, what costs are involved, and how it ties to your goals. As far as timeline goes, that's hard because DHS, Department of Health Services, we're kind of relying on them and how fast they process the budget amendments. So sometimes it is within a matter of a week or a few weeks, and sometimes it's up to a couple months.
Okay.
I've heard recently, to be quite honest, that it is taking a little bit longer because they have a lot of budget amendments coming through right now, but it ebbs and flows. So that's hard for me to answer.
That's okay. I just
but I
want
will-
families to be mindful of the time, like the time is, it's not just for Journey 21. If your child wants to go to Shepherd's College or somewhere where it's a tuition above and beyond a normal budget, making sure that you talk with your IRIS consultant early, saying, hey, my kid's going to be going here, or my young adult, how do we get this covered?
It's like one of those things where you want to be as proactive as you possibly can, even if you're just thinking about signing up for a program. Certainly want to just keep that open dialogue with your consultant. I will say at our organization, TMG, we have a team of people that support the consultant around those budget amendments, and we are really good about making sure we're completing all the paperwork necessary. We know kind of what DHS wants to see with, we got to document why the change in budget, what it's going to be used for, how it's going to help improve an individual's life. So we document all that, right? And so the more detail you can share with your consultant about how this program is going to benefit your child, it certainly helps too. We have a team of people that work with DHS to try to get it approved as quickly as possible.
Okay. So we have a question, and it says, speaking to that, are you saying with that amendment, were you saying that this would cover in full, or the individual would potentially get a portion of it for the academy type classes? Oh, at J21. Currently, we've been lucky that DHS has covered our costs. Now we do have an 18 to 21 transition program. If someone is still in high school, we have worked with schools to actually cover part of that portion because they're no longer attending the high school. And so the high school will cover the vocational aspect of it. And that way it's less burden's maybe not the right word, less cost to IRIS for that program. So yes, it can be covered currently. Things change, times change. At some point, they could choose not to. If someone felt like it wasn't a benefit, Hopefully that doesn't happen. We always try to excel, but there's never a guarantee, and that's why we want to work with the budget amendments as early as possible with your IRIS consultant. And we, as Journey 21, always try to help in any way we can. If the IRIS consultant asks us for information like our curriculum, all of that, we're happy to share whatever is needed for DHS to make an educated decision.
Yeah, that's a good answer. It can be fully covered. Again, I don't want to sound wishy-washy, but it always depends on the situation. So sometimes there are programs where there's other funding sources available to an individual or involved, like DVR funding or school funding, as you mentioned. And I think another good example is the Project Search program, which we mentioned earlier, is that oftentimes people can use a mix of different funding. So there are times when DVR will pay for a portion and IRIS will pay for a portion, or the school will pay for a portion and IRIS will pay for a portion. But yeah, there has been many circumstances where it's been fully funded through IRIS.
Absolutely.
And if Christine was on the line, she would probably be able to share, because she ran a lot of the Project Search sites. It really depends for sure.
Yep. And then I guess I have a question, just so families understand the need for making sure that their plans have so for like places like Journey 21, people register a quarter at a time, right? So we historically, like, people were adding stuff a quarter at a time. We've now switched to like trying to do yearly authorizations, but making sure that the family is working with the IRIS consultant to get the authorization in place, because authorizations cannot necessarily be backdated. So I want families to understand how that works, that don't sign up for something tomorrow and tell your IRIS consultant on next Monday, because it may not be able to be covered, correct? I get all of you, so I'm just curious.
Yes, no, that's a good question. Yes, it's always good to make sure your funding is available and you have that conversation before you start programming. I would say, err on the side of caution with those type of things. If it's a week or 2 weeks, it's probably going to be able to be backdated. But if we're talking months, then probably not. So it's always good to be aware of just knowing that it's a quarterly program or it's an annual program, or making sure that if it is on it does go on your IRIS plan, that it's authorized for the full year, even though you may pay for it in 4 different payments per quarter, but just know that it's on your plan and you have that money kind of set aside and allotted in your budget for the entire year. We certainly run into that situation where people, I guess, don't have the money for the full year of a program, and then they have to stop or budget a member, or kind of change up their budget a little bit. So I would say plan for the full year, and then know what those billing periods are.
Absolutely. Cool. Any other questions from our attendees? Any last thoughts, Dan?
Well, I did just want to quick before, it's almost 7. I don't know if we want to jump off at 7, but I did just want to quickly share that we have some really nice success stories on our website. So our website, tmgwisconsin.com, is just a wealth of information for people. We have a ton of great partner links, and we have a great newsletter called The Path Ahead, which we highlight individuals in the program. We talk about current topics in the world of long-term care. So you can certainly subscribe to our newsletter. It's got great information. But we do have this school to community transition resource page for you families that have the younger kids. There's some great information on this part of our page. It really talks about how you get started in IRIS. We have some great success stories and videos that you can watch. But really, there's this link on how do I enroll in IRIS? And the first step in here is, again, going back to that how do I find out where my ADRC is? And if you don't know where your ADRC is, we have a link that takes you where you can figure out where it is, and then it comes up with their phone number and address that you can reach out to them. So this will sort of walk you through the process and take you all the way through to getting started. And then should you join TMG, we have a welcome site on our website. And a lot of other great information too. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to read about some of our Iris consultants, you can certainly do that through our website. We have bios on all of our consultants. We share information around, what it means to be in a self-directed program. We have a great, FAQ section of our website that really, touches on all the basics. We have great employment resources available. We have some other TMG materials out there too. And yeah, it's a great resource. We have a wealth of information out there. But you can also go on the DHS Iris site, and they have plenty of information too. But what we try to do is we try to, take all the best information and put it onto our website. And we also, highlight some great aspects of our program on our Facebook page too. So we have a very active page where we share a lot of great information. We try to highlight some of our partners. So I certainly encourage you, if you're on social media, you feel free to follow us and subscribe to our newsletter. But most importantly, feel free to reach out anytime to Christine. I'm sorry she's having technical issues, but hopefully we'll all cross paths at an event coming up this spring. Yeah.
May 15th, you guys, mark your calendar, May 15th, 6 to 7:30. I believe TMG is coming to our resource fair.
Okay.
I believe so.
So.
Hopefully, otherwise we'll make sure Dan gets there, or one of his teammates. So we do have our resource fair, so make sure you put that on your calendar. It's free. We have vendors from all across the disability community, so ADRC, Social Security, attorney and guardianship, things like that, financial planners, and also just other local nonprofits like Zachariah Acres, and other people just doing great work with people with disabilities. So keep that in mind. And then we also have on April 3rd, a webinar on Social Security and work incentives. That's in the evening. Oh, we have another question. I'm wondering what is considered something as an option for help with things like OT, or is that something more for medical and OT services? Is it a medical insurance or a?
So that might be a card service. So there are certain things that Medicaid will cover, what they can use their card services for, and then if not, then yeah, your IRA, you could potentially use your IRIS funding. But that seems like that would most likely be a card service.
Okay, great. And I just want to say thank you to Dan and his team. They have been with Journey 21 since like the beginning, and helping us navigate as a vendor. So we are very grateful to you all, and of course look forward to our continued partnership. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you all.
All right, have a good evening, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.